realm that's not eternal. There's the cosmic manifestation, and for equal duration, cosmic annihilation, and then in a cyclical fashion again, cosmic manifestation, maintenance for some time, and then the withdrawal of that creation. So that's the Vedic picture of time. And Dhruva Maharaj appears at the very earliest stages of the creation. And creation is one of the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. Creation is, keeping it really simple, creation is what Vishnu does, sub-creation is what Brahma does, and the Manvantara, the third topic of the Bhagavatam, the Manus that give laws for mankind within creation, and they set the whole thing in motion. They assist Brahma to fill up the universe with good praja. So they serve as Prajapatis and empower others who become Prajapatis and so forth. That's the third topic of the Bhagavatam. So the story of Dhruva takes place in the earliest stage of creation, and it comes in Canto 4 of Srimad Bhagavatam. In Canto 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam, we find this wonderful conversation between Vidura is one of three brothers, Dhritarashtra, Pandava, and Vidura, or Pandu. So Pandu was the father of the Pandavas, Arjuna, Bhima, Yudhishthira, and his two brothers, Nakula, Sahadeva. So Pandu had an elder brother, Dhritarashtra, and then a younger brother, Vidura, without details. Vidura is part of this royal descendancy, without details. And he was, in that royal assembly, he was considered very wise. Dhritarashtra, who couldn't take his wisdom, always consulted him. He was regarded by everyone as very wise, and rightly so. And with some circumstance, because of time I won't go into the circumstance, Vidura was on pilgrimage, and one of the places he visited while on pilgrimage was a place where Maitreya Rishi, a great sage, was residing. There was a conversation between the two, Maitreya speaking, Vidura inquiring from Maitreya. Very early in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, we hear that Maitreya was present when Krishna spoke to Uddhava. It's a very celebrated section of Srimad Bhagavatam. Uddhava Gita is found in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam. It covers many chapters. It's like a graduate study of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the undergraduate study. And Krishna's talk with Uddhava is like the graduate study. Many topics, very elevated. And Maitreya was personally present to hear all of that. So by that hearing directly from Krishna, he had become a perfected soul. He was already an elevated soul. He had become a perfected soul. So the conversation between the two, between Maitreya and Vidura, was very elevated. And there were, at the beginning of their meeting, there was a series of questions. Of course, there was their mutual appreciation of the qualifications of one another. Very warm, lovely exchange. It's appropriate exchange. Then questions. And one of the questions, there's a series of questions, but the first of those questions by Vidura was, can you please describe the process of creation as performed by Lord Vishnu? And it's not that Vidura didn't know. He knew. He was highly learned. But he wanted to hear directly from one who has realized this subject matter. So it's very detailed, what Vishnu does, and then following that what Brahma does, and then following that what Manu does. And this time is cyclical picture says that in each day of Brahma's life, there's 14 Manus. And each Manu rules the Earth planet, actually rules beyond the Earth planet, for a period of 71 yuga cycles. And one yuga cycle is 4,320,000 years times 71. So Manu lives a long time. And the first of the 14 Manus is Swayambhuva Manu. So that's described in Canto 3. And interestingly, Swayambhuva Manu is born directly from the body of Brahma without any assistance of a wife. And his wife is born along with him, and they're both manifested in adult features. That's the description in the 3rd canto Bhagavatam. Together, with some indication from Brahma what service Brahma would like of them, they begin their service. There's 2 sons and 3 daughters. The first of the daughters is described first, Devahuti. Devahuti's marriage with Kardama Muni. And there's details of that exchange. They're living together in marriage in the forest, undergoing Brahminical types of lifestyle and penances and austerities in Satya Yuga. After some long periods of time, they begin having children. 9 daughters are first born. Those 9 daughters, Brahma comes. Brahma instructs these 9 daughters should be given in marriage to the following rishis to help with the Prajapati program that's required to fill up the universe. And within the womb of Devahuti is an incarnation of the personality of Godhead. And he will deliver his mother. Lord Kapila Dev is born, long instructions, Kapila's teachings to Devahuti, the whole Samkhya philosophy. And before that, in Canto 3, Kardama takes permission from Lord Kapila to go back to the forest and continue his austerities and meditation process and so on. So 3rd canto ends with the conclusion of Kapila's Sankhya philosophy. So remember, we're still at the beginning stages of creation. There's Brahma, there's Manu, and then there's the 2 sons of Manu and the 3 daughters of Manu. So Canto 4 is where Dhruva comes. Dhruva becomes the son of one of Swayambhuva Manu's sons. So Swayambhuva Manu had 2 sons. We're going to see the family tree at the end, the genealogical table. Priyavrata was the elder son. Uttanapada was the younger son. The elder son would normally become the next emperor, but Priyavrata, the elder son, said, "No thanks. I want to go to the forest and focus on cultivating bhakti. But my younger brother, he's really good. So, with your permission, make the younger brother the king and I'll go to the forest." So consent was given, Uttanapada became king, and one of the sons of Uttanapada was Dhruva. So that's the context. He's a king, as you see in the picture here, and it's not just, besides it's in the early stages of Satya Yuga, and in Satya Yuga the means for achieving spiritual perfection is dhyayate, meditation. So he achieves perfection through the process of meditation, as is instructed by Narada Muni. It's a fascinating story with many, many lessons, and especially celebrated in this section is his childhood pastimes or activities, of how it came to be that he, as a boy of 5 years old, he achieved spiritual perfection. It's pretty amazing. So we'll begin. This evening session is just an introduction, not going to begin the chapter itself. This is just introduced. So I'd like someone, don't just speak out, but raise your hand and see, in saying one word or a short phrase, when you think of Dhruva Maharaj, what you think of, what comes to mind?
Determination.
Determination. Yes.
Austerity.
Austerity. Dhruva Maharaj. Austerity, determination.
Perseverance.
Perseverance. Yes. What else? He has many outstanding qualities. Huh?
Devotion.
Could you raise your hand just so, because it'll make it easier.
Faith.
Faith.
Devotion.
Devotion. Definitely.
Determination.
Determination again. Yeah, but really determined.
Vivasayatmika, one focused.
Very focused. Yep. 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 He moved from mixed to pure devotion. A classic about Dhruva's life is that it's very relevant to us, because somewhere inside there's devotion to Krishna, and somewhere inside there's other stuff, and our mission is somehow to get from the mix to the unmixed. And Dhruva is a role model for us to look to. Not imitate, because what he did we can't do. But the principles we can learn from. Now, the narration, it begins in chapter 8 of Canto 4. And in this beginning section of Canto 8, chapter 8, text number 8, in one purport, Srila Prabhupada lists 6 benefits of hearing the Dhruva pastime. So the first of them that he lists is indicated by the graphics here: detachment from material possessions. And the material possessions have both gross and subtle aspects. Attachment, as the image on the left shows, it's bondage. We're attached to the temporary, attached to trying to be the enjoyers of the temporary. And because of that attachment, there's bondage. And to get free, you have to let go of the attachment to the temporary. So he did. But it wasn't just gross, it was also subtle. There was an attachment to revenge and deep anger towards being mistreated, treated very harshly. So he let go of that too. The image on the right, these are not my graphics, someone did the graphics. I asked them, what's that? They said, well, they meant to show on the right side, that's somebody stealing stuff, and the left side, that's a young devotee offering whatever he has to Krishna. So the principle of detachment is offer everything to Krishna, not just give everything away and don't steal. The essence of detachment is bhakti. We could say some more about that, but later as we go along. So another benefit of hearing the story of Dhruva, you recognize that image on the left, that's the watering the root of the tree, so all the leaves, branches, fruits and twigs and everything of the tree gets benefit of watering the root of the tree. So in the Dhruva story, Prabhupada writes, enhancement of one's devotional service by austerities and penances. So he was very determined, and his determination was strengthened and made 100% pure, in part, along with the bhakti process, with austerities and penances. Now, a couple just practical points. What austerities and penances are expected of us? It's not so difficult. It's not like what Dhruva did. Our austerities is some restraint of the tongue. You know, we accept Krishna prasadam. Or is that austere, huh? But that means we don't take other things. We don't take foods in the categories that are not offerable to Krishna. We take, even in the offerable to Krishna category, only that which is first offered to Krishna. So that's an austerity of the tongue. And then further austerity might be, as described in Bhagavad Gita purports, we may observe some kind of fast on Ekadasi. Not so difficult, beans and grains. We fast from beans and grains on Ekadasi. Or one may do some further fasting on Ekadasi or Janmashtami or appearance days of the Lord, and you can increase that in different, not some radical, extreme, obsessive way, but in a practical way, and so forth. Those are some examples of us, rise early, take a morning bath. I mean, it's austere to not take a morning bath. Once, when traveling in China, I met somebody that was from Mongolia. It's really cold in Mongolia. It's cold in Detroit. It's more cold in Mongolia. I was shocked. He very openly shared, like he was not uncomfortable about sharing this. It's not common. It is common for people in Mongolia during the winter months. For 6 months, they don't take a bath. I tried not to show surprise in my facial expression, but I can't even imagine. So that's austerity. That's wrong. Austerity is out of ignorance. But so we do our Vaishnava austerities, but it's not severe. But it's, in principle, it helps make the mind strong, and it helps control the senses. So that's physical, body, mind, and words. That's another austerity. Chapter 17, text 15, Bhagavad Gita. Krishna speaks of austerity of speech. Besides, we don't say prajalpa or gramya katha, worldly blah blah. We also then speak the truth pleasingly, that's described in Bhagavad Gita directly. So that's austerity of speech. And these acceptances of austerity, recommended kinds, this will help us. So in advance in bhakti. And it certainly helped Dhruva. We'll hear as we go along. Here's a picture of the austerity Dhruva did. We're not required to do this, but that's what he did. And so a third benefit mentioned in Prabhupada's purport, improvement of faith in Krishna. He had faith in Krishna. We're going to hear some details about his faith in Krishna was especially enriched through his mother. And in the course of hearing more and more about Dhruva Maharaj, I've become an ardent fan of Suniti, his mother. She's like Supermom. She gave the seed of bhakti to her son, which Narada nurtured further and resulted in perfection. Improvement of faith in Krishna is something that we all need to do to go from mixed to pure. So there's some, and we need to improve it. And essential for improving the faith is association of those that have strong faith, or sadhu sangha. It's a principle described in this story and described in the Bhagavatam in general. And he stayed with it, and he stayed with it, and stayed with it, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew. So, improvement of faith in Krishna is something that is a benefit for us just from hearing this Dhruva story. Elevation to the transcendental platform of devotional service, that is, going from the mixed to the pure stage. We can see it happening, and by hearing it happening, how it happened, it helps us to go from that mixed to the pure stage. In the commentary, it's written like this. If you know the verse, you can say it with me. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha guru tasyai te katita yartha prakashate mahatmanaha. This is from the Upanishad, Svetashvatara Upanishad, that says you need to have as much faith in Guru as Krishna, and one who has such faith and devotion in Guru and Krishna, the knowledge of all the Vedas is revealed. That's what happened to Dhruva. He had faith and devotion in Narada, and his mother as well, and in Vishnu. No, he was motivated, but he was fully confident. Vishnu can get me what I want. Although what he wanted was something material. It was very high material want. So he became benedicted with full understanding of the message of the Vedas. In Madhvacharya's commentary on this Upanishad verse, he writes a commentary that says, Bhakti brings one to the Lord and shows the Lord. He's commenting on one of the Brahma Sutras, the Sutras of Vedanta Sutra, by speaking like this. Bhakti brings one to the Lord and shows the Lord. That is, Lord Vishnu became manifest before the eyes of Dhruva, and so forth. Well, that's the form of Vishnu that Dhruva saw. Very beautiful painting. And according to Rupa Goswami, most of you here, I'm sure, know who is Rupa Goswami. One of the principal followers of Lord Chaitanya was Rupa Goswami. And he wrote a book named Lagu Bhagavatamrita that just, it's about this thick. It's a BBT publication now with commentary, but it's just taking one topic that comes from Canto 1, Chapter 1, that is forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. Avatar. This one book, Lagu Bhagavatamrita, speaks on that one topic. That's it. And he explains there that the form that Dhruva saw was Prishnigarbha. Now, we're familiar in ISKCON with Prishnigarbha because we like Krishna Janmashtami a lot. And when we hear the Krishna Janmashtami story, we hear that the 8th child of Devaki appeared in the prison house of Kamsa, and when the 8th child appeared, he appeared in this 4-armed form of Vishnu, and he said to Vasudeva and Devaki, in previous lifetimes, in Satya Yuga, same yuga as Dhruva, right? In Satya Yuga, you underwent very great and prolonged austerities and penances and acts of devotion in order to get a son like me, and I appeared before you in this very form. Just the same one. And I benedicted you. Not only I'll appear as your son, but for 3 lifetimes I'll appear as your son. So he appeared as the son of Sutapa and Prishni, known by the name Prishnigarbha. We hear that every year at Janmashtami. And Rupa Goswami says the form that Dhruva saw was the same Prishnigarbha. There's a whole explanation of scriptural references and reasoning and so forth, and he reaches that conclusion. So there it is. There's the Prishnigarbha form of Vishnu that Dhruva saw. And the 5th benefit of hearing. So I hope you stay with us for all this Dhruva story because you get lots of benefit. The connection and experience with the personality of Godhead is not just notional or hopeful, but one can directly experience. The presence of the personality of Godhead. About 3 weeks ago I was in Los Angeles. Just a little sharing. And I met somebody who 3 days before had his first contact with the Hare Krishna movement. He's from Turkey. He was living in Vancouver, running a business. He had come to Los Angeles to do some business. And he had an interest in the Vedas. He hadn't read Bhagavad Gita or Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, didn't know ISKCON, nothing. But he knew, so he's found this promotion for a Bhagavad Gita museum experience. So the devotee in charge has done a really good job of putting it on Facebook and all the other places where you promote something. So he was like attracted, so he came to the Bhagavad Gita museum experience. And then he got his first Bhagavad Gita. So I came 2 days later. The person who showed him around, I got to meet him. Said, we'd like to meet one of our sannyasis. So I met him. And he, long story short, it went on for an hour and a half. He gave his autobiography of how he got to where he was. But he was at the position where he wanted to see Krishna. And I said, you had to be qualified. You can't just stamp your foot and say, I want to see Krishna. That's not how it works. You have to qualify yourself. Well, how long does it take? said, wow, you're in the fast lane. All that it did, here's Prabhupada to a reporter. Swamiji, how long did it take to become Krishna conscious? Prabhupada, less than a moment. And in that less than a moment, just two things. The tendency to be an enjoyer of the fruits of your work, you have to let go of that. And the other is the tendency to try to understand higher truths by speculative knowledge. You have to let go of that. Generally, people are attached to those two things. Therefore, generally, the process is gradual. But all it takes is less than a moment. So that's what I said to this nice young man. And he was serious. He wasn't just, there was some background in what his autobiography that showed he was really serious about what he was saying. But the Dhruva story, he did it in 6 months. Now what he did was pretty intense, beyond anything we can do. And we can guess he had some earlier qualification besides what he did in those 6 months. He was a very elevated person. But it happened because of the mercy of the personality of Godhead, not just because Dhruva did a bunch of good stuff. Or say the same thing differently. In order to achieve what Dhruva achieved, there's effort and mercy both required. For us to achieve the goal of the bhakti process, effort is required and mercy is required. So there's a lot of mercy, because the person who one is approaching is a worthy of our approach and mercy person. And he's very merciful. And he at a certain stage, it's described like this by our acharyas, Lord Vishnu in the spiritual world, considered, he's such a young boy, and he really wants me very much. Let me go. Like a loving father might do for a child in the family or something. Let me go. So he went and showed himself to Dhruva, and more than showed, he empowered him and so forth. And finally, what Prabhupada writes, this hearing of the Dhruva story generates a feeling of pure devotional service in the hearts of the hearers. There's potency in sound. Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. We know from Lord Chaitanya's Shikshastaka. Nam Nam Akari Bahuda. The Lord has many, many names. Bahuda. And in each and every one of those names, Nija Sarva Shaktis. Nija means his own. Sarva Shaktis, all potencies. All of his potencies are in each and every one of his names. So each name, just like when we read Bhagavad Gita carefully, you'll notice in the purport Prabhupada will identify Krishna is being addressed here by Arjuna as Rishikesha because. And so, or Govinda because, or each name has all powers, but there are specific potencies invested in specific names. And by calling those names, those potencies are connected. You're connected with them. There's primary and secondary names, according to our scriptures. Primary names awaken the loving relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world. The secondary names indicate his person. The position of God, the all-powerful, the supreme, Paramatma, Parabrahman, Adhoksaja. Those are secondary names. The position of being God. And the primary names are his loving relationships with his loving devotees. And those names stimulate love like that for us. So similarly, the story of Dhruva, just hearing it, reading it, remembering it, reciting it, discussing it, awakens a feeling of pure devotional service in the hearts of those who hear it. Because that's what happens to Dhruva. There's a potency. It's a benefit from hearing this. So even our, children here, just, and whatever other entities might be floating around the room, there's spiritual benefit just by hearing this sound vibration. So I added, in addition to those six, found in 488 purport. There's two lessons I like very much. They are taken from our acharyas. In Krishna's talks with Uddhava, mentioned already, that's this Canto 11, Chapter 14, that's the section. Krishna says, only by bhakti with full faith can the devotees obtain me. And the commentary says this is shown in the histories of Dhruva and Prahlad. So we're hearing the history, the story of Dhruva, and we're learning a lesson that says bhakti with full faith. So when asked, what's in one word, when you think of Dhruva, what do you think of? He had great faith. And it grew and it grew and it grew. It grew enormously. But bhakti with full faith enabled Dhruva to obtain Vishnu eternally. And here's another taken from the commentary of the Acharyas. By the association of bhakti, like a touchstone, the body made of the three gunas becomes free of the gunas. It's a nice way to say it, isn't it? So you all know what a touchstone is. Very celebrated is Sanatana Goswami's touchstone. A touchstone is a kind of mystical stone that when it touches base metal, the base metal becomes gold. So it's a very valuable stone. As a touchstone can do like that, so bhakti can do like that. When it touches the body of a devotee, the three modes of material nature are dissolved by the power of bhakti. And the comment specifically is made in relation to what you see in the image here. This is Dhruva getting on a Vaikuntha Vimana because the two of the representatives of Lord Vishnu were sent to take Dhruva to the spiritual world at the end of his 36,000 years of having ruled the earth planet. And then he went to Badrikashram to finish his life in the mood of devotion and meditation and service. So when he was getting on the plane to go back to Godhead, he didn't leave his body and in his spiritual form ascended to Vaikuntha. But it said specifically, and there's ample commentary elaborating, his body became fully surcharged spiritually. It became luminous like the sun, in golden hue. And as he was getting on the plane, his body became totally spiritualized. Maybe you've heard a description or seen the painting of what happened to Narada. When Narada is giving his description to Vyas, how he became Narada, in his previous life he was somebody else. He was a little obscure boy. And by association with elevated Bhakti Vedantas, he was given the means of achieving perfection, and he did. And at the end of his life, he gave up his body, and his spiritual form instantly manifested. No time lag. It says, as much as lightning and illumination, not lightning and thunder. Lightning and illumination, simultaneously his spiritual form, his swarup, manifested. So this is in contrast, different than what happened with Narada. His body became fully spiritualized. So bhakti has that power to free one from the modes of nature, and not only him, but also his mother. That second Vaikuntha Vimana in the background, that's Mom, that's Suniti. She was taken back to Godhead too. The liberation that Dhruva achieved was not the Sayuja kind, or merging kind, but the service kind. And that's commented on this way. According to Padma Purana, the wise say that liberation means following Vishnu. So here's some names, or meaning of the names of Dhruva, in case, that's something I like to know, the meaning of words or meaning of people's names. So, the unchanging or supreme truth, in Bhagavad Gita, Dhruva is used to indicate the permanent. They're similar in nature. Eternal and fixed. Just like many of you know, the pole star. The pole star in the heavens, in the firmament above us, is a fixed planet, and all the other planets move in relation to the pole star. There's details which I can share with you at the right time, but I want to keep going. That pole star is Dhruvaloka, and Dhruvaloka attained the pole star. After he ruled for 36,000 years, Vishnu said, you'll be taken by my representatives to reside eternally in this planet which isn't destroyed when the universe is destroyed. It's a spiritual planet. The cultivation of devotional service, this is my main, when I think of Dhruva, it's this one. Down in that lower corner, that's mixed devotion, and then Dhruva is showing how to go from mixed to pure devotion, or what are the steps and the elements involved in achieving that. And when we're trying to achieve anything, there's always going to be obstacles. So we can consider for ourselves in practical terms, what are some obstacles that we face in going from our mixed position to a pure position. It may be obstacles or blocks with the holy name, or a relationship with a particular Vaishnav or some Vaishnavas, relationship that we may have, an obstacle with some service. And by hearing of the Dhruva story, it can help us cross whatever our blocks are. At least a pure devotee, and the narration of their life and activity has that kind of potency to help us transition. So there's just a few more things, and I'm done. Reference is made in several places in Prabhupada's writings about the Dhruva story that's illuminating. So we're going to begin with one from Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Generally, people come into the association of devotees to mitigate some material wants. But the influence of a pure devotee frees a man from all material desires by enabling him to relish the taste of devotional service. Devotional service is so nice and pure that it purifies the devotee, and he forgets all material ambitions as soon as he engages fully in the transcendental loving service of Krishna. A particular example is Dhruva Maharaj, who wanted something material from Krishna and therefore engaged in devotional service. When the Lord appeared before Dhruva as four-headed Vishnu, Dhruva told him, "My dear Lord, because I engage in your devotional service with great austerity and penances, I am now seeing you, whom even great demigods and sages have difficulty seeing. Now I am pleased and all my desires are satisfied. I do not want anything else. I was searching for some broken glass, but instead I have found a great and valuable gem." Thus Dhruva Maharaj expressed his full satisfaction and refused to ask anything from the Lord. Now, when describing the Dhruva story, often reference is made to 728 Bhagavad Gita, this well-known verse. In big letters there's Artarti, that was Dhruva. The four types of Sukriti, Jana Sukriti, pious people, they engage in devotional service. And Artha, Jigyasur, Artarti, and Jnani. Those are the four. The Artarti is those who are the desirers of wealth. And that's where he started from. He actually just started, he just wanted revenge. And then his mother said, don't go for revenge. If you want a kingdom, don't let that be your motivation. But if you want a kingdom better than your father's father's father, that means a kingdom better than Brahma, you're going to have to get Vishnu to give that to you, because he is the source of everything. He can do anything. You get the pleasure of Vishnu and anything's possible. So from his mother he received that seed of bhakti mixed with his I want a kingdom program. So it was desire of wealth, so mixed devotee. In Canto 5, Chapter 19, some of you may be familiar with this. This is a nice chapter. Prayers of the residents of Jambudweep. Nice section. One of the prayers goes like this. Whenever Krishna is requested to fulfill one's desire, he undoubtedly does so, but he does not award anything which, after being enjoyed, will cause one to petition him again and again to fulfill further desires. When one has other desires, but engages in the Lord's service, Krishna forcibly gives one shelter at his lotus feet, where one will forget all other desires, which is exactly what happened with Dhruva. Exactly what happened with Dhruva. The explanation goes like this, of this verse. They're describing different masters and saying Krishna is the best of all masters. Because when he fulfills desires, which he undoubtedly does, he considers, I'm not such a fool. I'm not going to give them something that will just entangle them further in their material complexities of life. But when I give them something, I'll give it in such a way they'll no longer desire those things again. I'll give them my two lotus feet. And all desires gone. That's unique with Krishna as one's master. Now here's a similar reference. This is now a reference by Jiva Goswami, speaking of the Sudama Brahman story. Sudama Brahman? No. Krishna went to school, and one of his classmates in school was a dear friend named Sudama. Only Krishna learned everything in 6 months and he went back home. And Sudama continued. And after passage of time, Sudama became married and he lived very, 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 very extremely simply, like austere. And his wife was very austere likewise. It wasn't a domestic problem. But Krishna was over there, his dear friend, living in Dwarka with 16,000 palaces. And his loving wife wanted to see that he wasn't so skinny, that he had more to eat. And so, long story. With repeated nagging, Sudama went to go visit Krishna. But, mainly to visit Krishna, not just to get his wife off his back. And so he went to Krishna, and there's this exchange of transcendental loving affection between the two, one for the other and back and forth. They had deep appreciation and a loving exchange between the two of them. So the consideration was his wife wanted Sudama to have more of the necessities than he had. She was uncomfortable with seeing him so skinny, and etc. So this is a contemplation about why was Sudama, although dear friend of Krishna, in such an impoverished condition. And then later when Sudama went back home, everything was changed. He never asked Krishna for anything, but instead of his little cottage, there was this fantastic palace with opulence and so forth and so on. So here's the description. To a devotee who lacks spiritual insight, the Supreme Lord will not grant the wonderful opulences of this world, kingly power and material assets. Indeed, in his infinite wisdom, the unborn Lord well knows how the intoxication of pride can cause the downfall of the wealthy. And the commentary explains, since the Lord is full of all powers, please don't do that, it's disturbing the picture. Since the Lord is full of all powers and is always perfect in himself, he is independent in bestowing. He does not give wealth, kingdom, and power because of the variety of mentalities of the devotees. The Lord sees that intoxication with wealth, kingdom, and power causes downfall from one's position or makes one fall from one's dharma to hell. Since the Lord is omniscient, question, then why did he give opulences to Dhruva, Prahlad, and Ambarish? Answer, they had good intelligence. They had good qualities because of the strength of their intelligence, but the Lord does not give to those with meager intelligence because he sees it will create obstacles to attaining him. So Dhruva was special, Prahlad was special, Ambarish was special, Yudhisthira there's many examples of persons that were given opulence, but they were given opulence because they could handle it. And sometimes people receive opulence and they have a problem. There's statistics that people that win the lottery, they spoil their lives. They totally get wrecked because they don't have the capacity to handle all that. So, for the devotee, Krishna is careful. Prahlad, in Canto 7, Chapter 10, speaks the same idea. Oh my Lord, when a human being is able to give up all material desires in his mind, he becomes eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. He didn't want anything. Dhruva didn't want anything, and they got everything. Because he could handle it. Because he had no material desires in his mind. Almost done. This is a nice image showing a sacrifice in the center of the painting. That's a sacrifice that King Nimi, pictured over there on the right. There's the brahmanas doing the yajna, over here is his ministers. But just as they were about to begin a yajna, descending from the sky came these celestial, effulgent personalities called the Navayogendras. There's details, there are 9 of the 100 sons of Rishabdev, without details. But they're perfected beings. Like Narada, they can travel anywhere in the universe. They don't even need a vina. They just zoom, off they go, and their purpose is giving transcendence. Because that's where they are, that's what they have, and that's what they're giving. And so they came to this yajna, and the king stopped the yajna, stood up and received them, said, I don't know who you are, but you're obviously something amazing. And I'm inspired to ask you some questions, burning questions that I've been wanting to know answers to for so long. And he asked his questions, and they begin responding, all 9 of them, different questions. And this is one of those, Canto 11, Chapter 3, answers. When one seriously engages in the devotional service of the personality of God and fixing the Lord's lotus feet within one's heart as the only goal of life, one can destroy the innumerable impure desires lodged within the heart as a result of one's previous fruitive work within the 3 modes of material nature. When the heart is thus purified, one can directly perceive both the Supreme Lord and oneself as transcendental entities. Thus one becomes perfect in spiritual understanding through direct experience, just as one can directly experience the sunshine through normal, healthy vision. So this is a nice verse, and it's commented on by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this way. The perfect stage of devotional service can be observed in the activities of such great devotees as Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj approached the personality of God desiring a political adjustment on the material platform. But when purified by chanting the holy name of God, he is given a mantra by Narada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 2 more times. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He felt no further need for material sense gratification, as stated in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Janiyati Yashu Vairagyam. Some of you know that verse. If you know the verse, you can say it with me. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Janiyati Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitakam. So, bhakti causelessly awakens knowledge and detachment. That's what the verse says. And that's what happened to Dhruva. Bhakti awakened knowledge and detachment. Causelessly. He was trying for a kingdom, and he went on the other side of wanting a kingdom. So detachment and knowledge. He spoke transcendental knowledge like anything. When he speaks his prayers to Lord Vishnu, we'll come to that. As soon as one advances in devotional service, one is freed from the embarrassment of superficial material desires. And there's a very famous verse that's quoted from Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, a nice scripture. The history of Dhruva Maharaj illustrates the purifying power of Krishna consciousness. This Swamin Katartosmi Varamniyache. Those of you that like hearing Srila Prabhupada's classes, recorded lectures, you're familiar with that phrase. Swamin Katatosmi Varamniyache. That's, my Lord, I am fully satisfied. I do not ask from you any benediction for material sense gratification. The image up on the left, that's a diamond, and I guess that's supposed to be a broken glass, but a rock. He was looking for something very insignificant, like a kingdom, and got Lord Vishnu's association. That's the diamond. And having that association, the kingdom notion is far away. No interest anymore. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with his associates pictured here, he would daily go and hear from Gadadhar Pandit the Srimad Bhagavatam's message of Prahlad and Dhruva, and hear it hundreds of times, directly confirmed in scripture here. The great sage Maitreya, that's the great sage Maitreya, the guy with the big beard. And somehow Vidura is also elderly, but he looks pretty young over there. One should chant of the character and activities of Dhruva Maharaj, both in the morning and in the evening, with great attention and care in a society of brahmanas or other twice-born persons, because there's all this benefit will come by hearing regularly. This is the last quote. This is from Teachings of Queen Kunti. When Dhruva Maharaj was undergoing penance and meditating upon the form of Vishnu within his heart, the Vishnu form suddenly disappeared and his meditation broke. Upon opening his eyes, Dhruva Maharaj immediately saw Vishnu before him. Like Dhruva Maharaj, we should always think of Krishna, and when we attain perfection, we shall see Krishna before us. This is the process. We should not be too hasty. We should wait for the mature time. Of course, it is good to be eager to see Krishna, but we should not become discouraged if we do not see him immediately. I'm putting it mildly. This fellow from Turkey wanted to see Krishna. Okay, good. It's a good qualification. Now get qualified. Here's the family tree. We'll see this again tomorrow. There's Lord Brahma. We heard this cycle of time topic at the beginning. And here's his Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa direct praja from him. Swayambhuva Manu had these two sons, Priyavrata Uttanapada, and three daughters. We heard about Devahuti over here. And Uttanapada had two queens. One of them was Dhruva's mother, Suniti, and the other was another queen, Suruchi, and her son Uttama. So that's the family tree. We'll take a look at it again tomorrow. And the last slide is this one. The place where Dhruva went to do his austerities is in Vrindavan, assigned to him by Narada. And in Madhuvan, it's one of the 12 forests of Vrindavan. In Madhuvan there's a hill, Dhruvatila, and on top of Dhruvatila there's this nice altar. In the center altar, that's Lord Vishnu, form Vishnu. And to his left or our right, little Dhruva. And to our left or his right, that's Narada with his Veena. You can go there when you go to Vrindavan. Maybe the group that you go with will take you to Madhuvan. During that time period, in the early part of Satya Yuga, during Swayambhuva Manu, the river Jamuna flowed nearby. So he would take bath 3 times a day in the Jamuna, go up on Dhruva Tila, do his meditation, chanting of his mantra, and it's in this very location that Lord Vishnu came and benedicted Dhruva. So that's the introduction to the Dhruva topic. And those of you that will be with us tomorrow will then start chapter 8 and go through the first 24 verses of chapter 8. Very, very instructive. If you can attend, please come. It's very practical. Very practical. So any comment, discussion, questions? Yes?
Maharaj, thank you for that wonderful class. So, to me it seems like the unalloyed devotional service, like, when we are in Grihastha life, and at least for me, I'm thinking there's always some kind of material calculation that goes on in the background, whether it's like, okay, something about the future, something about, oh, okay, what will I do in the future? I need money to survive. So there's some kind of calculation. So to me, it seems like it's very difficult to go to that place of unalloyed.
Well, Dhruva was a little boy, but he grew up. And that little boy became the emperor of the earth planet for 36,000 years. He probably had stuff to think about. But it wasn't thought of in a material way. It was with devotion to the personality who got it. So that's how, as a grahastha, it's not, oh gosh, I have to deal with stuff. It's the stuff you have to deal with is to be seen in connection with service to Krishna.
A follow-up is like, well, that thought is there, but sometimes I feel like, oh, is it my mind? I mean, I'm manipulating because of my impure desires. I'm kind of manipulating.
We're mixed devotees, so it goes back and forth. Sometimes it's more devotion and less mix. Sometimes it's more mix and less devotion because we're mixed devotees and we're unsteady. And that's just the territory that we have to, accept. That's where we are. And the attention goes, in addition to accepting, to moving towards the bhakti principle as far as we can, daily, regularly, etc. That's sadhana bhakti. We move from where we are to where we want to go by proper means, with faith. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the very inspiring class. In the additional 2 reasons you gave, the second reason, you mentioned that the body will be freed from the 3 gunas.
Yes.
Why is the word body there, Maharaj? Is there any significance for the word body?
Yes, it is. Because that quote that you saw and you're repeating is directly from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and it's in relation to Dhruva. When he gets on the Vimana, specifically, his body becomes, he doesn't die or leave the body. That's common. it's unique. His body becomes fully spiritualized. Golden, effulgent like the sun. So that's why the emphasis there is there in terms of the body with the three gunas. Gone. Fully spiritualized body. Unique. Uncharacteristic, special. Okay? Yes?
Thank you, Maharaj, for enlightening us. When I hear of Dhruva Maharaj's pastimes, this thought comes when you also made the point that the effort from our endeavor and the Lord's mercy comes together.
Yeah.
But how in such a young age he had so much determination that brought him to that platform?
Well, nice question. He says, he himself gives one explanation, and that explanation is he's a Kshatriya spirited young boy. He's been challenged, and Kshatriyas meet challenges. They don't become discouraged when there's a challenge. They don't go cry or they don't run away. They meet challenges. He was challenged. His stepmother said what she said. I'm going to meet that challenge. Not only I'll sit on my father's throne. So, it was his Kshatriya spirit. His determination was in part passion. A Kshatriya is passionate, so he was driven by passion. To get what he wanted, that's passion. But there are lots of people in this world that are passionate. They don't have that determination that he had. So, a second, we don't have an explanation. He had a nature which even his mother recognized, and Narada quickly discovered, wow, this boy is really determined. So his mother knew it. She didn't discourage him from anything. I mean, other than having the wrong motivations. So this is in the beginning stage, not only of Satya Yuga, beginning stage of creation. So who was Dhruva before this next creation began? We don't know. There's nothing described that I'm aware of that says who was Dhruva before he was Dhruva. But he was somebody way up there in the determination department. Continuing from, so some people are more, some people are less, and some people are somewhere in between. He was a very special person. We cannot do what he did. Besides, yes, sir. Besides, it's a different yuga. Narada said, great sages, tapasvis, yogis, for lifetimes they undergo austerities to try to achieve Lord Vishnu. They don't. Lifetimes. Here's a little boy. Go back home, grow up, and then you can come out and try later on. Make sure you bring some samosas with you when you come. So your question was, how did he get such determination? So his Kshatriya spirit, his faith in the words of his mother, and whoever he was in his previous life before becoming Dhruva. So, now how does that apply to us? Well, we don't have that kind of determination, so it's not like throwing the towel. But whatever determination we have, we deploy, and we should strengthen that determination by austerities and penances. Not extreme, radical, obsessive things, but things that help us become more determined. Voluntarily, Prabhupada speaking in Los Angeles, (1972), I think it was. Determination is strengthened by voluntarily accepting austerities. So we don't have what he has, but whatever we have, it can be strengthened in reasonable way by reasonable austerities. Determination becomes strengthened. It's not surprising. That's how. Yes. And there's a gentleman in the back, he was...
Well, you answered the question. Now, Muni tried to discourage him initially, right?
Yeah.
That you cannot do that, and he said, no, I'm still doing it.
He tested him like anything. And
My question is, how do you strengthen the determination and faith?
how do you do what?
Strengthen the determination and faith. Most of us lack that.
Well, the foremost principle is association with those that have faith. That's why we're doing what we're doing. It's why we have ISKCON. It's why Prabhupada came to, there was nothing, and from nothing he created something by his association. So that's how we get faith and strength and determination, by associating with those that have it. And then we do with them the things that they do. Bhajana Kriya. And then it's strengthened by that method.
Yes, Maharaj, I was reading Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's biography. I got through a little bit of the first book, but I remember that he went through, he made a vow of chanting many rounds.
3 billion.
3 billion, yes. And he was only eating a little bit of rice every day. So my question is, a lot of our acharyas have gone through a lot of, showing of determination. And my question is, like, there are sometimes where, I chant more than 16 rounds and I really enjoy it. But my question is, what are some of the examples of things we can do on this platform that I'm in, or other devotees are, that where we can strive for more determination and being fixed in Krishna consciousness?
Did you understand the question back there? No, I'll repeat the question. We're practicing devotees, we hear of great acharyas that do these wonderful things. What about us? What's some practical things we can do to strengthen our determination in devotional service? Standard beginning and entry level is this. Ekadasis, appearance days of Vishnu. We take some increased vow to, in terms of reducing our, enjoyment of sense objects. So you may fast, you may something. And then increase something in the spiritual side. Extra japa, read something, chant something, remember something, recite something. Especially on auspicious days, because they come regularly, and because they're auspicious. So that's like an entry level. And then in principle, just the very nature of your asking this question, that's an indication. In an immature stage, it says imitation, but in a maturing stage, it's an indication that one wants to go further, and that wanting to go further itself is how you'll go further. And then you'll find something that you can do in a sustained way. Here's a little simple one. Kartik month comes once a year, and it's good to take a Kartik Vrata. Many devotees, a Kartik Vrata is really simple. You offer a lamp and sing the Damodarastakam prayers every day for a whole month. That's not difficult, but it's a Vrata. And you take some other something, supposing you know, like, Vaisheshika Prabhu's chapter a day. You know that one? There's this CHAD, it's a website, chapter a day, Chad. So I know many devotees, because he started it, they got on board and they read a chapter a day. That's not, that's in a category. It's not just diminishing, but it's increasing on the spiritual side. And they read a chapter a day, read a chapter a day, read a chapter a day, read a chapter a day. It becomes like brushing your teeth. It's something you do every day. And so it strengthens determination, and it displaces, what you might do other than reading a chapter a day. Because we're going to fill the day up with something. No, we're all busy, but there's time for things that are important. So, little by little, the very fact that say it again, the very fact you're asking this question, that's a sign of maturing in bhakti, and you don't just think it, you consider carefully what's something. What's the something that I can do? Right in nectar devotion. Here's another one. It's in nectar devotion. Something that's dear to you, but you don't really have to have it. Tamal Krishnaraj was teaching nectar devotion in Vrindavan. There's a devotee friend who took his class. And Tamal Krishnaraj was recommending, think, he was serious. Tamal Krishnaraj is heavy. So think of something that you're attached to, but you actually can do without it. And give it away to somebody. So it was in Vrindavan during Kartik month, it was cold at night, this young devotee had a hooded sweatshirt. And he gave away his hooded sweatshirt. He lived. And he was feeling separation from his hooded sweatshirt after he gave it away, because it was warm and it's, cold at night in Vrindavan. But he understood the principle, and he accepted it. And he benefited from it in Vrindavan, hearing from Rupa Goswami and then acting according to the instruction of Rupa Goswami. He benefited. And this devotee is still practicing Krishna consciousness and doing very nicely. And part because he did, accepted something and relinquished something. So those are just some little simple ways. Yes.
In one of the slides you talked about the pride.
Pride.
So I was just wondering, the pride, it's it is so much engrossed. I just was thinking that even in the schools or anything, when the kids do something, we say, oh yeah, you should be proud of yourself and all that, and we just do something and just to encourage, we just feel oh, we should be proud. So sometimes it just gets we just, I don't know, I can't, it's so subtle, knowing everything for the Krishna, just the pride thing, it is so subtle and
So what's your question? I got the picture. What do you want to know? How do you get free from pride? That's your question? That's your question? By dedicating everything to Krishna, whatever may come to you, you don't proud of, you give to Krishna.
it is so easy.
Huh? That's how.
It is not that easy.
Yeah, but I didn't say it's easy. You want something easy. I didn't promise something easy. You want to know how to become free from pride. That's how to. Something that I've learned from parenting is training your children to clean their room. So, I'm seeing some parents nodding. So, It's not so difficult to clean your room. But, ask the kid, clean my room. What language are you talking? It's not so difficult. Now, pride is something more subtle than cleaning the room, but it's, the obstacle is not an insurmountable obstacle. You just do it regularly, you do it regularly, you do it regularly, and it becomes, your room is clean. You can't live in a room that's not clean because you become accustomed to a room that's clean. And similarly, you become accustomed to not accepting things for yourself, but you offer them to Krishna. It just passes right through you, and it goes to Krishna. And you model that, and you can model that for your dependents too, and your friends too. You become an agent of pure bhakti just by cultivating something comes your way, you offer it to Krishna. Otherwise it sticks, and we become proud. Just see. I've become a prideless devotee. And everyone says how I've become so free from pride. Isn't it true? It's tricky. Yes, it's tricky. It's not easy. But practice. And that's the method. It all goes to Krishna. Nothing for me. Nirmama. We're going to be speaking this over the weekend in some finer detail with a little bit of a hammer. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Jai.
Flint, Michigan ki jai.